I've been using the Pimax Crystal Light for the past week now, and I put a lot of hours into this thing. I have played a very diverse amount of games through it. I've played racing sims, flying games, room scale games, melee games like Blade and Sorcery. I've played shooters, story games, multiplayer shooters. I've pretty much played my entire Steam library through this thing through the past week, and I'm going to give you guys my first impressions review. And I have a lot to talk about. I've been writing down notes into my phone of what I think about this headset as I've been using it, and I've got a lot of things written down. So I'm going to go pretty in depth in this video. I'm going to tell you guys what I like about the headset, what I don't like about the headset, if you should buy one depending on which kind of player you are, and just kind of my personal preferences. A lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about in this video may sound contradictory to some other opinions that you have heard on the internet of this headset because of just personal preference. Sometimes things just work for a certain individual that may not work for another individual. So I think I'm going to give you guys a pretty unique perspective on this headset, and some things that really surprised me about it that I thought I was going to hate about it looking at the online reviews of it. Now I'm going to start out with the pros first, and then I'm going to go to the cons. I'm not going to mix and match them. I will a little bit in some sections, but for the most part, I'm going to start with all the pros. So it's going to sound like I'm glazing the headset a little bit, but I'm not. Trust me, there is a whole list of cons of this headset that I have written down as well. I actually hated it at first, but I love it now, and I'm actually thinking of keeping it. Before I get started though, I did team up with VROptician to give away one code to one of you guys. So to find out the instructions of how to enter this giveaway, all you gotta do is just watch to the end of the video, and I'll tell you guys at the end. And by the way, VROptician does have lenses that they make for the Crystal Light. I've actually got mine coming in about a couple days, I hope. I think it's coming in September 4th. So I'm gonna get them for the Crystal Light, but at the moment I'm just using my contacts. And I just wanted to thank Pimax for sending this out to me for review. And also, if you do want to purchase a Pimax Crystal Light or a Super or any of Pimax's products, go ahead and click in the link in the description below. That's my affiliate link for this Crystal Light or any of Pimax's products. If you buy through that link, I actually get some money back. So you are going to be supporting me if you do purchase through that link. And also, after clicking that link, before purchase, you can apply this code to that purchase and you will get 3% off. All right, guys, let's get started. So by the way, if you have a VR headset already and you want to test out what it would be like to run a Crystal Light on your own PC with your VR games that you're playing right now, here's the 100% Steam VR resolution. So if you just go into the Steam VR's custom resolution slider and just put it up to this value, you will be able to run it at the same resolution that I'm running natively for the Pimax Crystal Light. And then you can see if your PC is capable of running the VR games that you typically play on your PC. And if you're interested in what computer I have and what I played the Crystal Light with, it is an AMD 7800X3D CPU with an RTX 5090 GPU. The full specs are going to be down in the description below. The first time I tried this thing, I actually kind of hated it because it's got those aspheric lenses, and it actually took my eyes about a day or two to get used to the lenses. And I almost felt like returning this thing at first, but I stuck with it and my eyes finally adjusted. And now the image is incredibly clear. It's got the best visuals I've ever seen, way better than my Quest 3, even with the pancake lenses, yes. Now, being glass aspheric, there is a benefit to that. That is that it's glass. So I did actually notice that this isn't something I can put on a chart or really show you, but I noticed the lens quality was just better than the pancake lenses in the Quest 3. Now, shocker, right? Pancake lenses, Quest 3, they're like the best thing in the world. And they are when it comes to edge clarity. But when it comes to like just, I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost like if you ever had a camera with an interchangeable lens, like the one I'm recording with right now. And if you ever like change out the kit lens, which I have, for a high quality lens, which is what you're looking at me right now through, you can notice a difference. There's just something to the clarity of the actual lens itself And also being glass, it's scratch resistant as well, more so than the plastic lens on the Quest, which is a benefit. But I noticed that just the visuals are better. With the Quest, there's like a little bit of glare through the lenses, and with these spherics, there is none whatsoever. Even though the sweet spot is not as good, and even though there is a little bit of chromatic aberration, this does not bother me as much as glare does. So in my personal opinion, I'm actually kind of liking the spherics better than even the pancake lenses in the Quest. And it's just got very little artifacts. It's got a very smooth, consistent image. I would say it's like similar to like a MacBook Pro screen if you've ever seen one at an Apple store or a Best Buy or something like that. It's got a very consistent image, very accurate colors. And what this does in games is it makes the games feel more photorealistic. I noticed that with some games when I was playing them with my PSVR 2, for example, the colors seem very cartoony and it doesn't give me a photorealistic feeling when I'm playing those games. It kind of gives you a feeling like I'm playing a video game, and that's fine. But what I usually preferred with the Quest 3 was that it had that more flat image, it had that more realistic image, but at the same time the colors were dull, the contrast was dull, so there was a trade-off. The PSVR 2 always gave me the nice colors and the nice contrast, whereas the Quest 3 always gave me that more realistic image, but at the same time was very dull. Well, this thing is like the best of both worlds. It's got those nice colors, it's got that rich contrast, but it's also accurate at the same time. Now, that weird feeling with the aspheric lenses, closest feeling I can describe to that feeling is if you've ever gotten a new prescription for your glasses or your contacts. Like I have, about a month ago, I had to get a new prescription for my glasses and my contacts, and for about a week I literally thought I had the wrong prescription because I had vertigo, I had dizziness, blurriness. It was kind of hard for my eyes to adjust to get a sharp image. But after that period of about a week, I was able to use the glasses just fine and the contacts as well without an issue. And that's kind of what the Crystal Light was like. And I never had to do this with the Quest 3. I never had to do this with the PSVR 2. But when my eyes did adjust, that's when everything became so much better. Now, with that being said, there are a few drawbacks that I noticed. Chromatic aberration is one of them, and also Mura. The Mura is definitely not as bad as the PSVR 2 or anything like that. And it's actually not even as bad as the Quest 3. I noticed that the Quest 3 definitely has a little bit more of a dirty image when you're looking at the sky. But the Crystal Light, it's got a little bit of a tiger stripe type of Mura when you're looking at the sky, but a very little amount. It's almost unnoticeable. And honestly, I just don't care about that, especially coming from the PSVR 2. Now, my next pro is something that may shock a lot of people, and that's that I find this headset incredibly comfortable. I don't know what it is about my face shape. Maybe it's because I got a huge forehead. I don't know. But this thing feels so comfortable on my head. I can wear this thing for 3 hours and I have no issues, no pressure points, absolutely no need to upgrade the foam or anything like that. Everything is perfect for me. As soon as I put this thing on, I can wear it for, like I said, 3+ hours. I have no issues whatsoever. I just got done, for example, filming some videos for this video while playing on this thing, and I was wearing it for I think about 2.5 hours, and I had no issues. I think it has something to do with the large surface area of this face gasket. It kind of just wraps around my forehead. In fact, it feels more comfortable to me than my PSVR 2, and I even have the globular cluster comfort mod on the PSVR 2, and it still feels more comfortable than that. I also just feel like it doesn't look as large as the video portrays it to look. Like on this screen that I'm looking at, it looks huge, but when I look at it in person and when I actually wear it, it doesn't feel that big. Also, for the type of games that I play, which is mostly like room scale, Half-Life Alyx type of games, more story-driven games, I feel like the local dimming works for me just fine. But there are certain games where I have seen it fail pretty big, like in Kayak Mirage, when you go into that little cave section with all the lights on the top. I think I recorded the video. This is where it really struggles. There's a lot of swimming of the local dimming, like it's kind of flashing a little bit. It's trying to keep up with all those lights, and as a result, it actually seems to dim down the entire screen. Definitely play around with the local dimming settings if you do have this thing, or if you're going to get this thing, because in certain games it's kind of awful, but in other games, like where you have a larger portion of the screen that's dark and light, not just little, you know, stars type of thing, in those type of scenarios, it's just fine. Arizona Sunshine, dark scenes look just fine. Games like that, Metro Awakening, looks just fine. And yes, there is blooming, but for some reason I didn't have an issue with this. I don't know, for me, it just didn't bother me. I did see the blooming around some certain little objects, but I just didn't care. Maybe I'm just so used to the huge amount of Mura in the PSVR 2, or just the Quest 3 being super gray, that I just didn't care. But I rather have the nice black areas where they should be black and deal with a little bit of bloom than not have that at all. Now, a lot of people, when they review the Crystal Light, mention something called geometric distortion, and I have no idea what they're talking about, because the headset that I got has absolutely zero distortion. Everything is exactly like it should look. There's no weird warping of lines or boxes or anything. I really don't know exactly what people are talking about, because I haven't experienced anything like that. For me, the horizon looks just flat, or a line that looks flat. Everything looks edge to edge, looks just fine. The only type of distortion that I see is like at the last 5% of the lens, when there's like a little bit of distortion when you're moving your head around. You can kind of see it at your peripheral. But other than that, when you're just looking at an image going from a sweet spot out, I didn't see any distortion at all. So I think what's going on is some people are getting bad lenses, and I have seen a lot of people report that they have had bad lenses. However, my unit has perfect lenses. I don't see any issues at all. Both lenses look exactly the same, and they look crystal sharp, crystal clear, and I have no geometric distortion whatsoever. There is definitely something to talk about considering the lenses, but I will save that until we get to the cons. Now, another pro is the Pimax Play app. I have had no issues with this app whatsoever. Everything's been working just great. You boot it up, you turn on your headset. Actually, you don't even have to turn on your headset. You can just leave it plugged into your computer. You boot up the app, it automatically detects your headset, automatically detects the controllers. I don't have to even click anything, and I'm off. Like, I just put on the headset and I'm ready to go. It's like the most seamless experience ever. You can start SteamVR through the headset or through the app. It doesn't matter. You can just get right into a game really fast. I've had no issues with the app, and everything works great. You can adjust your resolution through there. You can adjust refresh rate. There's a setting for 72 Hertz, 90 Hertz, and 120 Hertz. I mostly use the 120 Hertz if I'm playing a VR shooter or something that's easy to run. If I'm playing something that's a little bit heavier, like Star Wars Squadrons, I did have to put it down to 72 if I wanted to have high graphics settings. GPU upscaling works. However, there were instances where I was getting a little bit of a weird stutter out of nowhere. I was playing around with the upscaling feature in Star Wars Squadrons, and out of nowhere, for some reason, everything just stopped kind of working. It almost like it was playing at like 15 FPS. My head was extremely delayed, and my CPU usage was skyrocketed. And this only happened one time though, after like 3 hours of playing. So I don't know why that happened, but it did happen. And also the performance was great. I didn't really notice any performance stutters or anything that was related to the headset. Everything was great, other than some of the tracking, which I will talk about in the con section. But as for my computer running this headset in certain VR games, as long as I was hitting that refresh rate that I was targeting, everything was extremely smooth. The only game that wasn't smooth was Arcane Age, but that game wasn't smooth on my Quest 3, and it wasn't smooth on my PSVR 2 either. So there's just something wrong with that game. Although the games were extremely smooth, I was having absolutely no issues. In fact, I felt like it was smoother than even my PSVR 2 with the PC adapter. Certain games that set up with the PSVR 2, I was actually experiencing quite a bit of stutters for some reason. But with this setup, I just feel like it works really well with Steam VR. I wasn't getting stutters. It was just a seamless experience. It just worked great. The only thing that I did notice was high CPU usage, and that is actually the tracking. All right, this thing does not have onboard tracking. It has cameras, but it doesn't process any of that tracking data. All that tracking data is processed through your CPU. And I did notice in some areas my CPU was getting hit pretty hard. So if a certain game is CPU limited, maybe something like the Quest 3 actually might give you a better performance headroom than something like the Pimax Crystal Light, because all the tracking is done on the Quest 3. But at the same time, you are having to stream that video to the Quest 3. So there's some performance overhead there as well. Most of all though, I'm just loving the visuals that I'm getting out of this thing. It is so clear, colors are so accurate, everything looks photorealistic, and the comfort is there as well. It just works for me, and I'm having a great time playing games with this thing. I really am. But there are some issues, so let's get into the cons. The first con is the aspheric lenses. But at the same time, I actually like them a little bit better than pancake lenses. What I noticed is there is, like I mentioned in the beginning, an adjustment period. So yes, at first it feels a little bit weird. And also the sweet spot that you have to be in is so sharp that when you get out of the sweet spot, it's quite jarring. So with this headset, with these lenses, you've got pinpoint sharpness in the middle, right? And it's, I would say, like, if the lens is this large and this is where you're looking at in the middle, this is all sharp. And then just at the outer edges, I would say the last 20% of the lenses edges, that's when it gets softer. And because it's so sharp in the middle, that blurriness at the sides is kind of jarring. All right, it's even more jarring in some cases than the PSVR 2, because the PSVR 2, well, it's kind of just not that sharp in the middle in the first place, right? Now, like I said, you do get used to this as well, but it is jarring and you do have to get in a sweet spot. You can't just put this thing on like the Quest 3 and you're good to go. You gotta make sure your IPD is on point. You gotta make sure that you're right in the middle of the lenses and make sure everything's tight, and then you're good to play. And this might take a couple minutes. Honestly, it might take a couple minutes. And this is where I would say that it depends on what kind of games you play. If you play a lot of melee VR games, I would say this thing is not the best headset, even though it's so incredibly clear in the visual department. First of all, well, it's got this thick ass cable, there's that, but also because if you get out of that sweet spot, which is very easy if you're moving around a lot and you're swinging your arms, I have learned how to play those types of games on this thing, but it's not the best. I'd say if I exclusively want to go play Blade and Sorcery, I'm probably gonna get my Quest 3. I'm not gonna get this thing. And especially in those types of games, you're not really like looking at the visuals as much anyways, right? Those types of games, you're more focused on the physics of the game, more focused on the combat, you know? So something like the Quest 3 and its wireless experience is way better for that. But if you're playing games like Metro Awakening or Arcane Age, games that are more visually appealing, Half-Life Alyx, right? You're moving through the world a little bit slower. Well, that's where this headset really shines. So if you play a variety of games like I do, then you're just fine. But if you exclusively play those physics games, I would not recommend this headset. Okay, now onto the tracking. This is where Pimax has gotten a lot of flack, and rightfully so. It seems that their tracking has been pretty awful in the past. However, for me, I don't know if I'm special or something, but for me, the tracking has been absolutely perfect. In fact, it has been better than the PSVR 2 using the PC adapter. With the PC adapter and my Bluetooth adapter, there are times when it kind of forgets where I'm at, kind of forgets the controls, you know, has my arm flying across the map. Whereas with the Pimax, I did not have this issue. Everything was incredibly consistent. The head tracking is consistent. The hand track or the controller tracking is consistent. But these controllers feel super cheap, all right? Unfortunately, they feel cheap because they are cheap. They are really plasticky. They're really light. Great battery life, but super cheap feeling. And I think even this trigger has like a weird creaking noise to it. This joystick feels kind of grindy a little bit, whereas the right one doesn't. However, they feel pretty good because of how large the buttons are and how they're laid out. The comfort of actually holding the controllers is good, but the controllers themselves and the quality of them isn't great. Where the tracking really sucks though is in the quality of the tracking. Now, what am I trying to say? It seems like the tracking of the controllers is running at a lower FPS than what you're running the headset at. So if you're running at 120 Hertz and you're moving your camera while you're moving your controls, it seems like these are running at like 30 FPS or 60 or something that's lower, right? Almost like a reprojected game or something, but it's not. This is something that happens in every single game. You eventually kind of don't notice it anymore, but if you want that nice, smooth, silky hand movement like you get in the Quest 3, you don't have that here, all right? You're moving your hands, well, they're kind of jittering all over the place. And they just look like they're running at half rate or something. Also, in some scenarios, the tracking was a little too slow. When I was trying to stab some dudes, I noticed that I like swung at this one guy and it didn't register that swing whatsoever. I had to kind of like slow my swings for it to fully register my swings. Also, sometimes when I turn on my headset, I have a tilted horizon, and the only fix for this is to either unplug and plug in the headset or use third-party software like PSVR, but you got to pay for it. So apparently there used to be a toggle in the Pimax Play app, but they removed it because they said it interfered with the controller tracking. But they are actively working to fix it. Also, another little caveat, little con, I would say, it's not like a deal breaker or anything, is when you're looking at the screen, you almost get this like square border. It's not a circle border, but you almost get like a square border, which actually makes sense. When I record the screen output of this headset, it is a perfect square recording. So that is what I see when I'm in the headset. It's not like noticeable, you can't like see the borders or anything, but it just looks like almost like your lenses are square, but they're not. The lenses are actually round. Also, this cable is super thick. It's kind of short as well, not super short. I am close to the computer, but the biggest problem is just that it's super thick. I mean, look at this thing. So I do have to, I feel like, use controller turning more often than other headsets, especially to avoid tangling. That is definitely something that I wish they could work on. Maybe something with fiber optic. I think the original Crystal might have had that. I don't know, but it's real thick, and I think it's a little too thick. And also, these screens have motion blur. I noticed that there is a little bit of motion blur, not as clear as the Quest 3. Doesn't have that motion clarity of the Quest 3, where it's like perfect. All right, it's not as bad as the PSVR 2, not even close. It is there. It actually might help if you're playing like racing games, because it might give you a little bit of a nicer feeling of motion. I did notice that. But if you're playing more fast-paced games, I did notice when I turn my head, there is a little bit of motion blur, but not too bad, not horrible. Now, the biggest con, in my opinion, of this Crystal Light are these terrible, terrible speakers. I don't even know why they're there. They're okay if you just want to watch a YouTube video on your Crystal Light, or you need to make sure the sound is working or something like that. But if you want to play any game, these are not going to cut it, all right? First of all, the volume is just not there. I cranked it up to the maximum in every single setting that I could. Even through communications, I went through the deepest of settings, and they're still not loud enough. And even then, the quality of the sound is terrible. There's some distortion. They also have really bad dynamic range. So if there's like a loud sound, there's this kind of like DSP going on to where it'll lower the volume even more because of that loud sound. So the dynamics are terrible. It honestly shouldn't even be on this headset. I would almost have preferred to not have anything, because these are almost an insult to how good the visuals are. So if you do get these, definitely get the DMOS speakers, and Pimax, I believe, is going to send me the DMOS so I can have those for the full review. Or you could just use the headphone port on this thing. For example, I use these COS headphones with my Quest 3 a lot. They wrap around your ears super easily, just like this right here. The only thing that sucks is that you do have an extra wire, but all you got to do is just tuck it behind your shirt and plug it in, and you're solid. These stay on your ears really well. They sound freaking amazing and are a much better option than the stock ones. If you're not gonna get the DMOS speakers, definitely get these headphones or something like this. So that's pretty much it. That is my first week with the Pimax Crystal Light. And I would say that if you are a simmer, if you like playing slower story games like Half-Life Alyx, games like that, Arcane Age, Metro Awakening, right? Games that don't require a whole ton of movement, this is great. The visuals will stun you. Every game you play will look photorealistic. The textures will look super sharp and depthy. The colors, oh my God, it's just a feast for the eyes, guys. It really is. I cannot go back to the Quest 3 with its bitrate streaming or the PSVR 2 with its huge amount of Mura after I've been using this. This thing is just a feast for the eyes. There are some games where I will use the Quest 3, but if I want to have the best visuals possible, the Crystal Light is where it's at. And the PSVR 2, I think I'm just going to keep that with the PS5. I'm probably not even going to use the PC adapter as long as I have this.